an extra 5 minutes, but that's all. You know, we finish by 1:05 at the very latest. So would some of the groups like to give us a very quick indication of what they were hearing?
I can go ahead if I'm allowed.
Yeah.
Okay, so very quickly, our group, so I had Bridget, Mary, and Kyle. And our group really concentrated on primary education as the gateway to everything else, and that there's still so much discrimination and that children are still having such a hard time at the primary level. So so basically they suggested that, you know, less discrimination is needed overall, and that, you know, traveler children are often ignored because perhaps they aren't as good at reading and writing. And they need to be made to feel that they're just as important as every other student. And counselors, school counselors should be available for children that are bullied, and that bullying should be openly spoken about. And those who do bully badly should be suspended, or the school has to take responsibility for what's happening. So that basically the suggestion was that discrimination and bullying need to be explicitly handled at the school level. Not just, okay, the parents will have a talk to the child, but the principal needs to be involved in the school administration. And so in general, for what other supports needed to be done in order to increase access, less discrimination is needed all around, because it's hard to get work even after you have done a degree program. So when they're out there looking, they should be able to actually get a job. And also, yeah, I think that's basically it.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Sally Ann. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll go. So it's Karen, and I was with Kay and from the STAR project in Cork and John from the STAR project in Dublin, and we had very, very similar conversation. It should start from primary school, similar to what you were saying, Megan, that, you know, children should be neutered and felt welcome in the classroom from primary school level. And then also there should be more visibility about supports, access offices. Lots of people don't know that they're, and they should be, you know, in neon lights really, and about all the bursaries and grants that are available for people.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Karen. Anybody else?
We said it's more or less the same, but the supports definitely to be targeted at the lower level. It's fine having supports at the third level, but the transition between primary to post-primary and post-primary to third level is basically true from Donegal's point of view anyway. We've very little transitioning to third level of that sense, so it's about early intervention. But also the fact that we found interesting was there is loads of supports there, financial supports there, so it's about getting that information out there. And knowing about it and when to apply, when the deadlines are, and getting it through the communities and supporting them with the applications themselves.
Thanks very much, Barry. Anybody else?
Yeah, myself and Aideen were chatting there, and we were saying with Mish, there's no people. But for us, we were saying a lot of maybe more working in partnership with parents, like making them more aware of culture. And, you know, that, as Megan said, like if the children turn up, take that as a positive, not a negative, you know. Like, yeah, working in partnership with parents is a big thing, I think, for an easier transition from primary school to secondary school, and making them aware of the resources and money that is available to them to help them get them through the school terms.
Thanks very much. The importance of parents and community, something we've stressed a lot. Thanks very much, Julie. Anybody else?
I was in a group with Mary and Rudolph, and I think Carl, we didn't really appoint somebody, but we kind of more focused on the age that was, you know, from around 14 and 15, and we said that not a lot of students are emerging in secondary level as third level candidates, and that was a problem. And we don't, if you're a community worker as opposed to a teacher in secondary school, you have less access to people who are in secondary school. You know, you're dependent on the second level system to try and foster people and try and encourage them. We said there are in some cases cultural issues, you know, particularly with young women going to college, and that, you know, we need to kind of highlight the supports, but there wasn't enough knowledge on the ground of the support, so therefore young people weren't embedding a kind of an ambition, and it's very hard to get someplace if you don't know you can do it, and if you don't know you want to, and that was a problem. We mentioned that, you know, young people then themselves, there are other temptations like getting out to work, going on other training courses that mightn't be suitable but pay more money at that time. So I think Mariam said, kind of highlighted the opportunities that were there for mature students, and that, you know, we all kind of threw that around and said, yeah, that was someplace we could focus as well, that mature students, when they went through a certain stage in life and they're more ready for third level. The question we had was on PLCs. Did they qualify for those fundings that we talked about, or are they separate PLC courses, post-leaving cert courses?
Thanks very much, Tom, and I'll pass that back to the others to answer as well. Anybody, have we heard from all the groups, or is there anybody else there who hasn't spoken yet?
Myself and Declan were in a group there, and again, agreeing it has to start at primary level, particularly with training for teachers and celebrating culture. We're great at celebrating everyone else's culture, but we don't celebrate the Irish traveller culture very well in schools. Declan said that secondary school is key, particularly the first and second year, and putting pressure on the schools to like that, and pressure could be the money, dangle money in front of them, you know, like was done. But it's the Yellow Flag programme to strengthen that, and it was very strong about 10 years ago, but it seems to have fizzled out. I know it's fizzled out probably in the schools and areas. I don't know what it's like, but yeah, very similar to what's been spoken about already. Oh, and highlighting those supports to the students at an early stage going in, that to give hope that there's that actually, if you stick with this, that there is something at the end of it. You know, it's not just pie in the sky, it's not a rainbow that you're chasing, and to also let the parents know that, you know, because especially with the way finances are going now, it's hard to keep your head above any water at the minute.
Thanks very much, Peter. Anybody else, any other group that hasn't spoken, or anyone else that wants to add something that hasn't been said? I'm going to go back to Megan and Rose, and in so doing, I want to acknowledge also that there is an initiative at the moment to create conditions for the inclusion of traveller culture in the curriculum, and the National Council for Education Awards is working on a module which would be at second level up to at junior cert level, which would seek to include, which would focus on traveller culture in the curriculum. It probably needs to be mainstreamed, and it probably needs, traveller culture needs to be present throughout the school and the university institutions, but I just want to acknowledge that. So Megan and Rose, whichever of you wants to go first.
Go ahead, Megan.
What's the specific question?
Well, any comment on what you've heard? There are a number of questions raised. There were a number of things raised there about access to second level, more organizations getting access to second level, broadening out the second level. The need to celebrate traveller culture, the need to address discrimination, add to those areas.
I would say it's very important, and I can't talk for everybody, but when we're doing celebration of traveller cultures in schools in particular, sometimes the feedback is that when you're doing it like on your own and you're just talking about traveller culture, sometimes you could be, you know, if the school doesn't actually value it across the whole of the programs, and if the students don't have an understanding of what traveller culture is, it can very much put students at risk if it's not all done together in intercultural days, you know, instead of having it alone. And then I would say, just in relation to I know somebody was, Karen, you were saying about, you know, driving out more information to schools about how students can actually, our learners in the community can access information, how they can navigate the systems. We have an initiative, as Rose mentioned earlier, the Wooden Workshops. We employed 9 traveller students onto that, and we're in the recruitment phase again. It's for travellers and Roma. We're working with Jenny and the team to really enhance Roma participation. But I suppose that needs to be replicated across other institutions. It needs to be really, the schools really need to take that on board. They really need to facilitate a space for traveller students to be able to join them, because we know that lack of access to you know, Wi-Fi, or maybe, you know, internet costs and things like that at home may not be feasible. So the school will be mostly the only place that they can get the information if the teachers and guidance counsellors could pass on that information. We think that would be very important.
Thanks, Megan. Rose.
Yeah, I think the area of primary schools is incredibly important. I think that supporting role models is really important. I think it's really important that we have teachers who are travellers and Roma in those schools. And one conversation that I had and I know you will all appreciate the complexity of it, but a student who was training to be a secondary school teacher, and he spoke about how he couldn't disclose his identity in the classroom because of the casual language of racism that occurs in teacher staff rooms. But that when he met a child who was a traveller in the playground, the child couldn't believe that a traveller could be a teacher. And I think it's really important that we focus on developing and embedding these role models in powerful positions across the system. And I think Megan's point, I think we need to be in every school with those workshops. And I'm quite struck by, I know a primary teacher who's teaching in a very disadvantaged school, and I'm always asking about how the travellers are in that classroom, but the class that he teaches in, let's say there's 20 children in that classroom, there's no Irish children in the classroom except for 4. And the 4 Irish children are all travellers. You know, and it's really important to understand the level of disadvantage that those children are experiencing day in, day out, 52 weeks of the year in the school. And I think as higher education institutions and organisations like the Whitten Workshop, we can take those workshops, we can put them into those schools, we can challenge that narrative. And when I think of those children now at like 9 and 10 years of age, I want them to be able to see, I've often spoken about bringing Megan there, I want them to be able to see that there is a different reality, a different story, a different version of you know, where they can be and what they can do. So I think that the primary school system in particular is incredibly important, because I want those children to go into secondary knowing that they are entitled to and have a right to the same educational opportunities as everybody else. So I think if I was focusing your words, that would be where I would be.
Thanks very much. Thank you both. Just a few comments of my own then. Rose gave you a really quick cook's tour of a very complex system of supports that are available. Here and there are not listened, and then there are other people to do it, which in fact it took me quite a while to find out some of these things. Some of the things she's talking about are quite important, because the fact that the fact that a number of things will be available beyond DEIS schools is important, because in fact only 50% of travellers are in DEIS schools, maybe a little bit more. I'm conscious as well that the things she referred to as College Connect, in the way a number of the supports are made available for third level, it's through clusters of universities and colleges. And they may be called different things in different clusters. You know, they may not all call them the same thing. So you need to watch out. Rose, obviously, and myself and Megan are familiar with what they call them in Maynooth, but they could call them different things. For example, in Donegal, they could be calling them slightly different things. So you need to keep an eye out for that. Matures, when we talk about matures, it's not, you don't have to be my age to be mature. Matures generally means people who are 23 or more, you know, a bit just, and who haven't had an opportunity maybe to go to a second level. So those sorts of things are important. But what I'm picking up very clearly from you all is that more accessible information is needed, you know, and presented in a way that people can understand, and maybe regionalized as well. And we'll undertake to do something about that, you know, to try to make the information that that Megan and Rose have provided today, and a few things I said myself, to make that sort of information available. Secondly, I'm picking up that Roma need to be more explicitly included in this equity of access plan, and indeed that provides a piece of work, and thank you very much for picking up on it in the way that you did. Thirdly, I'm conscious of what you've said about the need for people who didn't have a chance to complete their education at an earlier stage to go back, travellers and Roma in particular. And I'm conscious of the very important comments that you made about first level, second level, and the need for first and second level to create real conditions. So there's no discrimination, so people understand what's going on, and they see some relevance, they and their families see some relevance are going in going ahead into third level. And then lastly, it seems to me, you're really talking about outcomes, about jobs, about people's right to have something that makes sense for them out of the education system. So thank you all very much for all of that. It's certainly given a very clear pathway for work that needs to be done. And I'm going to pass back to Laura now, thanking in particular Megan and Rose for their inputs, but also thanking all of you for your participation. I'm going to pass back to Laura to let you know about some things that will be coming up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anastasia, and thank you, Megan and Rose, for all the information. Really useful, I hope, for everybody. Just a couple of information pieces. We'll share the slides from today with everybody, and recording as well, if that might be helpful and useful for yourselves. We wanted to flag a couple of dates coming up. Ourselves in Pavee Point will be hosting a roundtable event on education very soon. We will send out the date for that early next week to everybody, and it will be great to have you all come and have discussions more about Traveller and Roma education. We will kind of focus on outlining our work in Pavee Point in education a little bit, and then look at existing and future measures in relation to travellers and Roma at all educational levels, but particularly looking at further education training and apprenticeships, because those are kind of areas that I think need to be, we feel that need to be tackled and are not necessarily getting the attention that it necessarily needs. And it's just really a space for us to come together and look at how can we work together perhaps to promote increased access and improved outcomes for travellers and Roma. So we'll email that to you early next week, the date, and you're more than welcome to join us. The second thing, and I've already sent this by email to those who were registered, but the Path 5 consultation takes place next Monday from 10 to 11:30. It's organised by the Higher Education Authority and the Department of Further and Higher Education. So if you're available to go to that consultation, please do. I'll pop that link to register in the email that I'll send to you afterwards with all the other materials. So please go to the consultation if you can, and to share your views on Path 5. Other than that, thank you so much for joining us. Really nice to see people's faces, and I hope we get to see you more and work together more in collaboration. And thanks for Anastasia, Megan and Rose, and all of you who shared your thoughts today. Really appreciate it. And I hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, everybody. And have a good day.
Have a great day, everybody. Bye.
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 See ya.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.